Firstly, thank you for having me on. An absolute honor to receive the award, and what a pleasure it was on the night itself. And I credit you with giving me the opportunity to wear my white dinner jacket, which doesn't often get out of the wardrobe, I must say. So a great opportunity on all fronts. So Verrency, what we are working on very hard is this problem of greenhouse gas emissions, which drive global warming, and we all see the effect of that on an almost daily basis. The bushfire season here in Australia started eerily early, and it seems to move from flooding to bushfires. It seems to happen here. It seems to happen in all parts of the world. So, a lot of people have different opinions on this, but I think the empirical evidence is in front of us, and that is that the climate seems to be throwing us a lot of curveballs. So what do we do? So our approach to this is that at its core, solving this problem is a job for government and industry. It's not a problem necessarily for consumers in the first instance. And we see some governments making very promising movements in the space by adjusting public policy. We see some industry taking action, but it's all happening too late and not fast enough, not decisive enough. And our view is that if you want to make these sorts of wholesale changes around the world, you need to include the consumers. Because consumers influence public policy then influences behavior of industry, and then the industry, the output of the industry will then feed into the consumption cycle for consumers. And we notice that consumers are largely ignored in the debate. Yet they make up anywhere between 60 and 70% of greenhouse gas emissions are the direct results of consumer household spend. Increasingly, that consumer household spend is put on a card or a wallet, debit, credit, doesn't matter. It's a digital form of payment. So our sort of lens has been put squarely on the consumer side of the equation. We then thought, if you want to make an impact, the problem is so huge. If you want to make a real impact, you need to have two things in place, and those two things became the central sort of building blocks for our strategy. Thing number one is you have to have global scale. If you can't scale globally, you're not going to make a dent into the problem. Second guiding principle was zero customer friction. People are busy lives. They're not unlikely to make a change in their consumption pattern if it is not frictionless. We've seen that happen, especially in payments for the last sort of 50, 60 years. So those are two guiding principles. And then we build a product around those guiding principles by embedding a solution within the digital payments flow. And what does our solution do? It does, at a high level, it does a few things. Number one is we have created a calculator that makes an estimation of the amount of carbon that's generated from a purchase transaction. Anything you buy, goods or service, you put on your card, we have built a calculator that estimates the carbon emission equivalent. Important to say that it's an estimation. It's not a perfect science, it's an art, but we gave our calculator to one of the big four advisory firms for them to, essentially shoot at. And we said, here it is. Take a bazooka, shoot from the hip, and tell us what's wrong with it. So they went through that exercise, gave us some very valuable feedback, and we made the adjustments, and then we got the certificate of quality from that firm, which is very helpful. So the second thing we did is we partnered with companies that have access to the voluntary carbon markets. What does that mean? That means that they have API access to thousands of carbon offset projects and access to provide us with carbon offset credits. Now, if we stitch those things together, you get to a consumer value proposition that allows a customer to be educated on the carbon impact of their consumption pattern. So now you know, my consumption has generated this many kilograms of carbon. In and of itself, not a particularly relevant data point until you put it in more relatable terms. So, you know, I'm going to make some numbers up here. Don't quote me on this, but Jeroen, you have generated 20 kilograms of carbon. That's the equivalent of spending this many hours in your petrol-fueled car, or this many airline trips from destination A to destination B. And you start to understand a little bit better in relatable terms what my consumption behavior has impacted on carbon. Again, a little bit more information. Then we're going to present you in the context of a benchmark vis-a-vis a peer group. And that could be a peer group of, you know, a bank's cards portfolio. It could be a country. It could be global. That allows you to say, you know, Jeroen, you are in the top 2 least polluting customers in your segment. Keep it up. You're doing a good job. Or, of course, the reverse presents a slightly bigger marketing challenge. If I'm in the bottom 2%, then, you know, I've got some improvement to do. But you can then sort of receive hints and tips to say, hey, what if you ate meat not 5 times a week, but 2 times a week? What if you stepped into public transport a little bit more often, etc.? Now, the last part of the equation is that we're human beings. We pollute carbon whether we like it or not. We can make changes to our consumption patterns and behaviors, but we will still emit carbon. Now, for those customers that are that way inclined, we then allow them to purchase carbon offset credits and offset that remaining carbon emission to really live a carbon neutral life. That's all fully embedded within the payments flow. And that means that from a consumer point of view, you do exactly the same as you did yesterday, meaning you tap, you swipe, or you dip your card, you pay for goods and services exactly as you did yesterday, but now in the knowledge that you can live a carbon neutral life. Now that solution has been, we've entered into a distribution agreement with Visa in Asia Pacific and the Central Europe, Middle East and Africa regions. That's approximately 100 markets in the world. Visa have embedded our solution within their, what they call the Eco Bundle product set. And that's now rolling out to banks in those 100 markets. We've gone live in August with Maybank, which is Malaysia's #1 bank, which was incredible. They launched a product with the board of directors, the group CEO, and they invited the United Nations regional representative there. And we were able to, you know, tell our story. And our story was the story I mentioned earlier, right? Consumers, public policy, industry. And it was really encouraging to get the feedback from the United Nations saying, this is a product that we see can reach scale. We see can educate consumers, and we see can have an impact. And that was incredibly encouraging. So, you know, we took that feedback, and now we're actively, you know, working on the remaining part of our pipeline, which is growing every month. And it's really cool to see that, you know, there's so many banks in those 100 markets that have ESG strategies. Don't quite know exactly how to manifest those strategies in real concrete terms. And now they're speaking with their Visa account representative, who then tells them, hey, this is something you can do. And you can just roll it out across your portfolio, or you can launch a new product, whatever you think you want to do. But this is something tangible that does good. So